Greetings, Mandrake Road family. You might notice this is not my normal place where I tend to record these videos, but we've been talking the last few weeks that Sabbath is a part of creation. It's built into the basic mechanisms and structure of creation. That Sabbath rest is something that was planned for and a part of what God did in creating the world and was part of the intended function of creation. And so it made sense today to actually be out in nature to do this particular video as we go back to Genesis 2 for today's video, and I'll go ahead and read verses 1 through 4. Thus the heavens and earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day God finished the work that he had done, and rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. These are the generations of heavens and the earth when they were created. And so, as we know, later in Numbers, and then we see in the Ten Commandments that the reason they practice Sabbath is because it's something that God did. That at the very beginning time, at the creation of the universe, creation of the world, at the conclusion of that, God rested. And so he calls Israel to do the very same thing. And so this is a passage that's always been very interesting to me, because does God really need to rest? Does God need to take a break from creation? And it's been something that's always been something that has perplexed me a little bit. But I don't think it's about whether or not God needed to rest. I think this is something that gives us an example of what it looks like to be in relationship with God and with creation in general. Something that God does at the end of each day of creation is looks back at it and sees that it was good. And so I think when we get to the seventh day, God takes time to reflect, to look at creation from the heavens and the earth, the sun and the stars, the water, the sea and oceans and land, the plants, the animals, human beings, everything, and to ponder God's relationship to this new thing that God created, this world teeming with life. And what we don't see on day 7 is we don't see, when we get to verse 5 of chapter 2, that we revert back to day 1. I think rest was meant to be the natural posture of their time in the garden. And I don't think that means that they didn't work or anything like that. It was meant to be something that allowed human beings to reflect on their relationship to creation as they were to tend the garden. They were to tend the land. And the words that are used there is to serve and keep the land, not to become enslaved by the land, which is what eventually happens after the fall. But then we take a look at also that it's a time when they walk with God in the garden. And so it's not just a time to reflect on creation and human beings' relationship to creation, but also to reflect on their relationship with God. And so when that when that is severed in the fall, their relationship is severed in a way that provisions have to be made. And so I think Sabbath is meant to give us a chance to be present in the moment and to really reflect on our relationship to creation, to really allow ourselves to be present in creation. And so as we think about ourselves now, I think that means when we venture out into the world, when we engage in relationship and community, that allowing ourselves to just be present and reflect on our relationship to other people, to our family members. Sometimes we take that for granted. We have certain expectations of people, and when those aren't met, it causes conflict and stress. And often we don't allow ourselves to just reflect on our relationship with other people, to say, to look at that relationship and just have no demands, have no expectations. And that's something that I think our current situation with this pandemic, with COVID-19, is creating for us. I think it's something where we've had to really think about our relationship to others, really reflect, especially as we think about those who are vulnerable and those whose lives were immediately overturned in the midst of this, and how we relate to them, and how we think about how we are to care for the vulnerable. And it's those who are on the margins or immediately impacted by not being able to gather together with their church family, that we see that we have to really reflect and think about how to really think about our relationship to those people, and also as we see our overall relationship to creation, and how we care for and utilize our resources, the way in which those resources come about. We start to ask those questions. And so also it helps us to reflect on our time with God. And I think that's something that this idea of Sabbath rest is meant to give us a chance to really be present in pondering and being present with God, and not wondering about, oh, am I doing everything right? Am I doing this right over here? Am I doing this right over here? There's a good chance you're doing some things well and some things not so well. And that's part of this life that we live. But sometimes we have to sit and just give ourselves a chance to really rest and have time with God that does not involve any demands or any expectations, but to just be with God. And so I was listening to Randy Harris recently. Randy Harris is a professor at ACU, and he is one of the most inspirational and thoughtful thinkers and expositors of the gospel, sharers of the gospel I've ever listened to. And I've heard him several times over the last 12 years or so. And he said, during this time, I think ministers, and I think he would expand this on to just Christians in general, to just take 15 to 20 minutes a day right now. As our worlds have turned around, we're isolated, and in some cases we're with family members on a regular basis, something that really changes our schedules and turns our worlds around in ways that we find new ways how this happens all the time, is to just take 15 to 20 minutes and take what he called a mini vacation, but to just have time with God, that there are no demands, there are no expectations, there is no agenda, but to just take that time to spend with God. And I think Sabbath gives us that space. And that's why I think when we think of Sabbath as being built into the basic structure and mechanisms of creation, it gives us a chance to really see our relationship to creation and Creator in a way that we don't normally do on a regular basis. It causes us to be intentional about our relationships, be intentional about the way we reflect on those relationships, whether that's with other people, with creation overall, or with God. As I think about the time that Adam and Eve spent in the garden prior to the fall, is they spent time in the garden just walking with God. And I think Sabbath says that, just walk with God. Just take a stroll with God. Why are you walking? Well, you might be doing it for exercise. You might be doing it for to get sun, to get out of the house. What if you just went on a walk to just walk? No intention of a goal with exercise or some sort of benefit, but just a chance to just be with God, or to just spend some time in prayer that doesn't involve words, where you just spend time just putting yourself in a space of being with God. And I think Sabbath gives us that capability. And so as we close out, I hope that Sabbath can become a regular part of not just our lives as a practice, but the way we think and the way we engage the world. And so thank you for going on this journey with me, and we'll be back again here in a few weeks with the Gospel of Mark. Thanks.